Since 1934, Iowa's farmers have turned to the Iowa Farm Bureau spokesman as their trusted news source. Now, the Spokesman Speaks. Listen in and hear from leading experts on topics important to farmers and agriculture. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to our November 30th edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I'm Andrew Wheeler, and today's episode features three entrepreneurs who are proving that ag innovation is alive and well in rural Iowa. You're going to hear how each of these guys got to where they are today and learn about the unique technology solutions they offer crop and livestock farmers. We'll start with B.J. Brugman, an Iowa farm kid who now serves as the CEO of Distynct, an up-and-coming Ames-based company that helps livestock farmers manage their facilities remotely. Spokesman editor Dirk Steimel has the story.
BJ, I'd like to start with an overview of your company. Tell us how you got started and the technology that Distynct offers to livestock farmers.
Yeah, so Distynct is really kind of our core mission is really to enable precision livestock farming and remote monitoring of swine facilities. So the idea is really to establish connectivity at these barns, connect sensors or other IoT devices then that can be used to automatically record and report data, and then finally display that data in a real-time dashboard that a producer can see from anywhere. Distynct got started really with a desire to capture more real-time data from swine producers. And so most of that information that we collect about the facility or its contents today, it's really collected manually and oftentimes recorded on a clipboard where it just lives forever in the barn and nobody's paying attention to it. And really we rely on humans to perform a lot of these menial tasks, a lot of that collection and recording of data. And so we found early on that if we're going to use this data and use it to inform our enterprise and make decisions, deploying technology to collect and capture that data is going to be way more reliable than asking humans to do it. And one of the things that we found early as we started Distynct was that if we're going to deploy more and more advanced technology for swine producers, what we really need is a good base to build on. And so that's what pushed us all the way back to establishing reliable connectivity at the sites with our solution and allowing producers to ask the questions that are most important to them, those questions that are specific to the enterprise. And they can display all that then in a real-time dashboard and ultimately care for the pigs better. So now that the door is open, once we have connectivity at the barn, the door is open and the possibilities are limitless. So our solution is cost-effective, reliable, and easy to install for producers.
What really makes Distynct unique kind of in the livestock management space, BJ?
I think that so many times swine enterprises get approached with single solution offerings. So, that might be something that's just for the veterinarian or something that's just for a feed mill operator or something that's just for the nutritionist or the procurement team. And I can go on and on and on about kind of single solution offerings. But I think what's really unique about Distynct is that it allows the entire enterprise to ask questions of the facility or its contents, and then we can use that data to drive the day-to-day decisions for those people in those specific job functions. So, with Distynct, there are no limitations to the number of sensors that can be added and no restrictions on what sensors can be added. And I think the value proposition is so compelling because the information collected and displayed in the dashboard is relevant to the entire organization. And these single solution offerings have really contributed to the fact that the data is very scattered across the industry and across these enterprises. And so Distynct, our unique feature is that the enterprise can use this single dashboard and bring key pieces of information from the site into one place.
BJ, how can Dystynct's technology, both the hardware and the software, help livestock farmers provide improved care for their animals?
Well, a couple different ways. I think part of it is, ultimately, as you think about a big enterprise, is just directing traffic for the enterprise. So helping producers know where to go as you think about these large enterprises with multiple sites. I grew up on a farm and there was 100 things to do every day. And usually you get to, 5 or 6 of them. And then you wake up the next day and there's still 100 things to do. And so part of what, I think deploying this technology helps direct traffic to the right spot. If you know you can only do 5 or 6 tasks, what are those 5 or 6 that must get done today? And Distynct can help set that direction for you. And then I think, the other part is that it provides support for the chore person who's probably doing other jobs. I think, that a lot of times caregivers for pigs in Iowa, at least, are maybe farming or, working in another job in the ag industry and caring for pigs before and after they do that other job. And so just trying to provide additional support for the chore person. And so a couple examples of that that we've seen since our technology has been deployed in the industry, just quick examples thinking about feed bin levels and monitoring feed in a bin on the farm. And, it's estimated that half the pigs in the United States experience at least one 24-hour feed event in their lifetime. And, that could be feed bridging in the bin for a short period of time, or I guess the worst case scenario, they simply run out of feed. But obviously, if the pigs aren't eating, they aren't growing. And so, we've been able to deploy using Distynct technology some bin sensors that can provide alerts in the event of a bridge, or just alert the chore person who's, like I said, most likely doing another job in between the time they do chores, that, hey, this bin is bridged up. When you come back tonight, knock this feed down and make sure those pigs get feed again. So just to kind of some quick examples of what we can do to assist livestock producers as they ultimately the goal is provide care for animals.
That's really interesting, and I can see how it would be helpful. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about ag entrepreneurship in Iowa. How do you see the climate now for ag startups in Iowa, BJ?
Yeah, I can just speak from my experience. I think one of the key pieces that builds the ecosystem and has built the ecosystem in Iowa for ag entrepreneurship is the willingness of actual producers to participate. And for Distynct and our team, we've been really fortunate to get connected first with early investors like the folks in the Ag Startup Engine, who are all actively engaged in some form of production agriculture. And that might not just be livestock, that may be row crop farming, or that may be, on the engineering side related to machinery, but they're all actively participating in some way, shape, or form. And that makes this such a big difference as you think about getting feedback on ideas and then finding partnerships. And I think the second thing I would say about ag entrepreneurship ecosystem in Iowa is just look at the track record of ag startups in Iowa recently. We've seen multiple companies start and develop in Iowa and grow their client base, grow their number of employees they have, all of that great for Iowa. I think, that's not only encouraging for entrepreneurs, but it also speaks to the network that is in place to support the founders and to support those companies. So ultimately, I would say Distynct looks like a different company than it does today without that support network, that we could leverage to get feedback of our offering and probably more importantly, to get some of our early technology deployed to move quickly on the refinements that we've made.
You mentioned the Ag Startup Engine at Iowa State. Why is a program like that so important to a startup company like yours?
A couple of things, and probably it goes without saying, early funding is very important. And I think that's what the Ag Startup Engine aims to do is be early funding for entrepreneurs who may just have a proof of concept. They may just have an idea in their head and need a little funding to get started. And so for us, the Ag Startup Engine was the first fund that, made a bet on Distynct. And we were able to use some of those early funds for deploying some of our proof of concept work. But I think ultimately the big piece and what is so unique about the Ag Startup Engine, like I said earlier, is that whole organization up and down, the members of that are all involved in some form of production agriculture. And that is so big as you think about getting feedback on the early technology, refining your pilot, going back and forth, getting feedback from someone, not only who wants to see you succeed because yeah, they have a stake in it, they have an investment in it, but also because they look at their own operation and see how technology like what you're developing could benefit their own organization.
Your company was a finalist in the American Farm Bureau's Ag Innovation Challenge, and Iowa Farm Bureau has helped in your development. Why is support from an organization like Farm Bureau so important for ag startups like yours?
Yeah, man, the innovation challenge was really, really important for us because it lined up with the timeline of our proof of concept work. So funding for the company is important at every stage, but those early stages are really, really, really important. And being a finalist for the Ag Innovation Challenge lined up perfectly with that time when we were trying to get some of our proof of concept work completed. So early funding like that is incredible, but support in the form of money, that's great. But also, in the form of coaching and making introductions just accelerates everything. So we were able to really leverage the network, not only from the ag entrepreneurship ecosystem in Iowa, but also leveraging the team from Farm Bureau as a way to get introduced to people and make introductions and really start to take our product to market.
What's in the future for Distynct?
Right now we're out to market with our initial product. So as I kind of mentioned, establishing connectivity, connecting IoT sensors to answer specific questions that an enterprise would have of a facility, and then getting them set up on our dashboard to display that information and view that information in real time. We're trying to take that in kind of bite-sized chunks to give folks a really good feel for how our system works and what kind of questions they could ask of their facility to ultimately improve the efficiency of their operation and care for pigs better.
I'm sure that conversation got the wheels turning for all of our livestock farming listeners out there. We know you all are looking for ways to improve your operations and how you care for your animals. There's also some nice peace of mind that comes along with that kind of technology, which actually leads us right to our second entrepreneur, Bill Brown of Insulites. If you're a farmer who's ever looked out at your electric fence from a distance and wondered, is that thing on? This interview is just for you. Spokesman writer Tom Block has the story.
Hi, Bill. Thanks for joining us today. You invented a product called Insulites that makes life a lot easier for farmers and ranchers who have electric fences. Just give me a little background on your product and how it's different from anything else out there on the market.
Well, we call it Insulites because we're kind of combining an insulator and lights is how we kind of came up with the name of Insulites. And, I grew up on the farm and my wife grew up on the farm, my partner Sue. We just got tired of checking the fence. We don't have cows anymore. We still board horses. And so we were always looking at how we could make an impact on our small farmers and ranchers. And so we developed the Insulite. And what it does is it's universal. It fits on all the posts, fits on all the wires. You can also just hang it on the wire. And there's a proximity circuit inside that picks up the surge of the fence. So there's no draw on the juice at all. And so it flashes with the pulse of the fence. And so instead of getting out of that truck and checking the fence or walking the line, now you can just simply look down the fence line and say, yeah, it's hot because this high intensity LED is flashing with the pulse of the fence. At night, you can see it up to a quarter mile away and drive during the, a lot of people ask, well, can I see it during the day? And this is, well, it's much like a Christmas light. I mean, you can drive by 20, 25 yards on the side of the road and check and see the fence is hot and stay on the truck. A lot of guys that really love it is the older farmers and ranchers that, it isn't much fun anymore to get out of their truck or walk the fence line. Now they can do it from staying there. I always tell them just stay in the pickup and check the fence. We also made it universal, so it just hangs on the wire. So what happens is that a lot of ranchers and farmers, they like to put their fence facing in, their insulators. And so we made it so you can just hang it on the wire, flip it around, and so you can drive on the back side of the gravel road and check the fence. Again, stay in the truck.
A couple years now, the product has been out there and you do a lot of trade shows, things like that. What kind of feedback do you get from your customers?
Wow. It's the number one thing is like, man, Number two, I wish I would have had this when I was younger. Or they say, why hasn't anybody come up with this? Because it is a little bit different. There are some other fence testers out there. The big, like Gallagher and them, they make one that hooks on the fence and they have to ground wire. We don't need a ground wire. It's all self-contained within there. Rain, snow doesn't hurt it. It just flashes 24/7. As long as there's a surge of viable fence, it'll flash and let you know that the fence is hot.
And I understand you have some new technology that's coming along that'll really be a game changer here for the Insulites.
Well, yeah, you asked that question about what's one thing you've heard from our customers, and so we're a big believer in customer discovery. And so since let's say it was probably 2018 December, we launched. November, so we launched at the Big Iron Show. One of the things that we do here, especially from a lot of the younger farmers, is that, man, it'd be really cool if it would text message you that the fence is hot. And so we move forward with that concept. We have it patented, and don't have a date yet, but we're fortunate enough to apply for and get an SBIR grant. So a research grant. And so we are in the process right now, as we speak, of putting the texting option in there. So when that electric fence blows that viable stage of it's hot, I say the flashing's pretty cool, but when it text messages you when you're in the cafe having breakfast and it says the fence is down, before the cows know. And so we're pretty excited about the texting option. It's a cellular option that will be able to pick up that fence that isn't working and let you know that it isn't hot.
Yeah, and like I said, that'll be a game changer, especially I'm sure you deal with a lot of farmers and especially ranchers who have these, cattle or other livestock in remote areas. So this will kind of give them a distance option, right?
Yeah. Some guys, man, I can do this on vacation. I can check the fence, but you can, a lot of guys, if they're, and there's still a lot of farmers that work in town, for example, they like the opportunity to drive by in the morning on the way to work and check the fence. And now if it's down, they can call home and said, hey, the fence on, the north lot or whatever isn't working.
You were selected as a top 10 semifinalist in the American Farm Bureau's Ag Innovation Challenge. That's a competition with startups across all United States. It'll be a live pitch competition coming up in January. What was your reaction when you found out that you made the top 10 for that contest?
Speaking of game changers, we love the Farm Bureau, and it was pretty cool that they actually made us. We applied last year too, and was in like the top 50 or something like this. We just feel so fortunate. The money is always good to win some dollars in pitch competitions, whatever, but having the opportunity to have the masses and everybody, all those Farm Bureau members, see that we are in the top 10 innovative products for, 2021, we're excited about it. And it's working. I said, we get more calls in the last couple of weeks just since that happened.
You said you've competed in other pitch competitions and that networking that you get to have too with the judges and the other competitors just to help renew some ideas.
Yeah, when we do a pitch competition, we always say the money's awesome, but what's really is we always meet somebody during that process that helps move our ball. I know we've already done that already, and it's going to be a virtual pitch this year. It's going to be a different for us. I'm trying to prepare for it now, but it's going to be a Zoom pitch to the judges. But I guess our message probably won't change.
And another thing about your product, it is made right here. One of the components made right here in Iowa, not too far from your farm there.
That was something we worked really hard at, and that was to have the opportunity to have that Made in America stamp on it. The plastic that we do, that is the Cinsulator portion of the enclosure, is made at Den Hartog Industries and Hospers, which is, 42 miles from my house. The circuit boards are made in EI Microsystems in Mankato, so we can actually go and pick our product up and talk with them. And it is really, other than some wire, all the electric fencing, supplies that we see in the farm and ranch stores, they're all made overseas. And so to be able to have that stamp of Made in America was important to us. And, we made that a big priority when we started. And another thing is we kept the price down. We're half as much as a lot of the other ones, where retail is very respectable and very, it's $18.50. So we made it so that farmer could walk in that store and walk out with $20 and have an insulator.
What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs or inventors who have an idea for a business or a product, but they're not sure how to bring it to market?
since starting this, I went through venture school at the University of Iowa, and that is a program that they sponsor and they put through, and it's all involved around the customer discovery and making sure that the steps of, well, this is a viable business, and so you don't waste a lot of money in the beginning. I would say, in Iowa here, I would go to venture school and go to the University of Iowa, pick up one of those local things, and make sure you're doing some discovery before you pull the trigger. The tough part is, I always say, I think there's a lot of people all over the United States that has great ideas here in Iowa, but that pulling the trigger or making that decision to actually do something about it that's the tough part.
Well, tell me, where can people find your product? I know you're online and at some retail stores as well. Is that correct?
Well, you can buy them online at Insulites.com, or you just give us a phone call of our 712-568-3005, and we'll just ship them out to you, and then we'll send you an invoice. Or you can go to a farm and ranch store, your local community. Farm Innovators out of Indiana, who makes a lot of tank heaters. They're a distribution partner with us, and they're putting them into a lot of the Baumgar stores and PV Marts and a lot of different stores throughout the Midwest. And then, of course, we retained the rights to do all of the state fairs and trade shows, and we're getting more and more people that are kind of coming into that distribution channel all the time. And Farm Bureau, you know what, they're helping us with that. They're putting out, and more people that see us, the better off we are.
Well, Bill, thanks for joining us and learning a little bit more about Insulites. We wish you well in the pitch competition in January. I know in addition to that judging panel, there's an opportunity for the public to vote for a People's Choice Award. So we'll encourage everyone, all of our listeners and our readers as well as the spokesman, to support you in that aspect of the competition.
Oh, that would be awesome. That'd be awesome. Afterward, there is a People's Choice Award, and I guess it's just a simple link. And this year, we're fortunate. We're the only one in Iowa that's in the top 10, and kind of the Midwest here. So we're trying to represent our Midwest. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Sometimes the simplest ideas are the best ones. And we definitely wish Bill and his company the best of luck as they compete in the American Farm Bureau's Ag Innovation Challenge in January. And it's so much fun to talk with these up-and-coming companies that are starting to make their mark, just like Distynct and Insulites. It's also fun to catch up with rural Iowa entrepreneurs who are taking the next step in their progression. So for our last interview, we have Michael Koenig, who's one of the founding members of ScoutPro, which is an advanced scouting app that farmers and crop consultants can use to identify weed and pest challenges in their fields. ScoutPro actually got its start 10 years ago as an idea from 3 classmates in an entrepreneurship class at Iowa State University. The company has grown and flourished, and they recently reached the point where they were acquired by Farmer's Edge. And if you follow the Spokesman newspaper, you know that we've covered ScoutPro for years. Spokesman reporter Tom Block has more with ScoutPro co-founder Michael Koenig.
Michael, thanks for joining us today. ScoutPro, the company you helped found, was recently acquired by Farmer's Edge. How did that relationship come about, and what does the integration of services mean for farmers and customers?
Yeah, so we've been working with Farmer's Edge for quite a while now, I think 4 years. They had actually licensed a branded version of what we did with ScoutPro, and it was called eScout at the time. And then we also licensed their imagery that they were providing solutions to their customers as an internal solution to ScoutPro. So that was a really good transition for us, using their products and them using ours. We'd had a long-standing relationship already, so it was a natural fit as we move forward in this industry, as alignments take place, technology starts to intersect. It was a really good fit for us to come on board and drive more of their retail and professional service provider side.
It's a service that really takes information off the bookshelf and uses technology to put that information in the hands of the users, right?
Yeah, so in our system, in the scouting side of it especially, we actually utilize resources from various extension organizations like Iowa State University. It has built-in images and information that help the user understand what they're seeing, and it takes those pieces that normally we would have done with pen and paper. And it's not a broken process by any means, pen and paper, but we wanted to build something that actually had decisions or information that you could use over multiple years and quickly find that information and make those decisions in real time.
Let's back up to the beginning when you and your partners first started ScoutPro. How did the Iowa State University Ag Entrepreneurship Initiative help you take your idea of using technology to assist crop scouting, bring that idea into reality?
Yeah, so actually that was an interesting story. We had to take, all three of us were ag education majors, so we had to take this required entrepreneurship class, and ScoutPro was one of the concepts that kind of rose to the top. And Kevin Kimley, which is the director of the Ag Entrepreneurship Initiative at Iowa State, we started talking after the class, and he saw some value in what we were doing, and he pushed us a little bit to see things through. And now we're 10 years later, and it's been an interesting story. But in that class, Farm Bureau actually had a touch to it initially because Dave Singpeel, which used to work with the Rural Vitality Fund and Iowa Farm Bureau, he actually judged ScoutPro in the class a little over 10 years ago now. So he saw the first look at what we were then and how rough it was, and got to see it through a little further down the story as Farm Bureau and the Rural Vitality Fund had a much larger play into what we did.
Then there was another first. In 2015, ScoutPro was the very first winner of the American Farm Bureau's Ag Innovation Challenge, which is often described as a Shark Tank-style competition exclusively for agriculture. How did that experience help you grow as a company?
Yeah, that mentorship was unique. The Ag Entrepreneurship Initiative at Iowa State and Farm Bureau and some of the folks here had a pretty close interaction with what we were doing when it came to tuning up our business plan, the way we presented, the practices that we did. Everybody was kind of all hands on deck and preparing for us for that. And once again, that was the first experience doing that competition. And so there was no guidelines per se as to what was the best way to pitch in that environment. So I would say that Iowa Farm Bureau was pretty pivotal in helping us prepare for that competition. And as you see today, we've won multiple competitions year over year with the American Farm Bureau Challenge. So they do a really good job of preparing individuals to go and compete at a national level to bring home those awards and show how strong our agricultural entrepreneurship is in the state of Iowa.
A little bit about your background. You were 3 farm kids finding your way in college at Iowa State. What were the biggest hurdles to starting a business?
Yeah, I think that was an interesting dynamic because Stuart McCullough, Holden Nyhus, and I, we were all kind of down the track of being ag education. We wanted to teach or be involved in communications. And so it was an interesting dynamic starting it with partners, especially at a younger age. Everybody always talks about challenges that you see, as you go into business with friends and the challenges that you see with that. Well, I feel like because of the way we were prepared from Iowa State, working with Iowa Farm Bureau, it really helped our dynamic and helped us figure out where our roles were in the business. I think that was really pivotal in helping us grow the business and get along as we went through the process. But if it weren't for the Holden Nyhus and Stuart McCullough, it would have been really hard for our business to grow because everybody fell into their unique skill sets and helped drive the business.
You talked earlier about Farm Bureau's mentorship through the Renewal Rural Iowa program and financial assistance through the Rural Vitality Fund. How did those programs help you overcome the hurdles that many startups face?
Yeah, we were looking for probably 6 to 8 months for different funding options, and that's been back in 2014, 15. We were looking at different options that were available. Rural Vitality Fund and Iowa Farm Bureau had kind of been there all along, and they were right in our backyard, and they'd seen the business and seen the business plan. And as we continue to go out and look for opportunities, we also kept in conversation with Iowa Farm Bureau, and it was a natural fit. Once again, we kind of found all these natural fits as we continue to grow our business. But Iowa Farm Bureau, the mentorship that they had, going through our business plan, helping us tune it up and prepare it to bring it to the Rural Vitality Fund, that was really a crucial piece to raising money because not only you have to have the story, but you have to have the due diligence behind it to be able to raise funds like that. So once again, it was such a collaboration between the different organizations that we worked with and my partners to get that done.
It sounds like there's a cohesiveness here in Iowa, a lot of people pulling in the same direction to help ag startups.
Yeah, I think there's a common goal. The challenge with raising money today in the industry is that everybody has a different strategy or goal in mind on what returns are and different things, where the Rural Vitality Fund worked with us and tried to come up with the best plan and strategy for how we wanted to be invested in and how we wanted to be partners with Rural Vitality Fund and Iowa Farm Bureau. So that was probably a unique difference between many of the organizations that we talked to is that it was a conversation and it was a collaborative strategy to the funding. It wasn't just sliding over the term sheet and saying take it or leave it.
If you could go back 10 years to when you were in college and give yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Raise money earlier. I think as you grow your business, you don't realize the capital needs sometimes at different stages of the business. And I think if I was to tell myself or other individuals that are looking to grow their business, there's two strategies to it. It's either self-funding or profitable right out of the gate, depending on how you build the business, or finding the right scale and opportunity of raising money. Timing is everything with that. So just being aware of your capital needs earlier on is always good to understand.
What's next for you with the integration of ScoutPro into Farmer's Edge? What kind of projects are you working on?
Yeah, so I think what we've talked about earlier in the interview was being able to have this collaborative effort of not only the growers that Farmer's Edge works with, but the retail strategy that kind of pulls the whole loop together. There's been this process in the industry of building software in the space that we build really good solutions for retail or professional service providers, or we build really good solutions for growers. Our goal and my goal coming into Farmer's Edge was to build a very good collaborative process between the two groups and to be able to share information and make quicker management decisions. That's always a challenge today, is how can we take information and turn it into action? And so that's been a really concentrated effort in the last 3 months that I've been there, and they are all in on this process of building the connectivity between the two groups.
That's the number one thing I hear from farmers is making the information usable. We've come a long way from having a bunch of thumb drives stacked up in a drawer, but the key is always to have that information in a usable form, right?
Yeah, for sure. Today, there's a lot of really good solutions out there, but what kind of action can you get out of them? That's probably the most important key to any of this new technology.
You've got to love that innovation designed to make life easier and more efficient for farmers. And I think that's exactly what you're seeing with the ag companies we've featured here today. We appreciate Michael, Bill, and BJ for joining us in this edition of the podcast, and we've provided links to their company web pages in the notes for this episode, so you can click there to learn more. We've also included a link to Renew Rural Iowa, which is the long-standing program Iowa Farm Bureau has used to serve rural entrepreneurs. You heard our podcast guests talk about the support that Farm Bureau offers ag entrepreneurs. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're curious to see how Farm Bureau can help you, we encourage you to check out that link to Renew Rural Iowa's website. And finally, we added a link to Iowa Farm Bureau's Grow Your Future Award competition, which is an annual contest for young Iowa entrepreneurs with innovative agricultural businesses. We're down to 10 finalists in this year's competition, and we'd like you to vote for your favorite finalist during the online voting period, which runs December 8th through the 17th. With that, we'll wrap up this episode of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I hope that you gained some inspiration from today's episode, and hope that you'll join us for our next regularly scheduled episode on December 14th. Thanks for doing the work that inspires everything we do here at the Iowa Farm Bureau. And thanks for listening to the Spokesman Speaks.
Thank you for listening to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast by Iowa Farm Bureau. Check out more podcast episodes at iowafarmbureau.com/podcast. You can also find and subscribe to the Spokesman Speaks podcast in the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast apps. We appreciate your ratings and reviews, and we welcome you to email us your feedback at podcast@ifbf.org.